Is it worth lowering your adventure bike or your road bike for that matter? Well, if you're thinking about it, here's my experiences of lowering a bike and the pros and cons of doing it. Let's get into it. So probably the first thing we need to cover is why would you do it in the first place? Why would you lower your bike? It comes from the factory, you know, they've spent lots and lots of research and development getting it right. Well, for me, and speaking to you, you might feel a little tippy-toey, as I was. You might be a little lower in the stature, like I am. And so if you are that person, then it's a really good thing to consider. The things you need to think about is, for example, if you want to get into adventure bike riding and you like the bigger bikes like I do, these things are high. These things are really high. This 24 Triumph Tiger, it is that the standard seat height with the standard seat is 880 millimeters on the standard height, and you can drop the seat down to 860, 20 mil. To give you an example, or what does that mean? What that means is that that's fully 200 mil higher than my Harley Deluxe, or any Softail Harley as a cruiser, as an example. 200 mils. That's well over. It's nearly 8 inches. So they're quite a lot higher. So that's one reason you might want to consider it. A second reason is, for me, and this may be something which applies to you, is if you're doing a lot of two-up riding, I was feeling really tippy-toey. I had my wife on the back. We're fully loaded. We're on the road, and coming up, it just felt a little bit. Just my confidence was starting, and I'm an experienced rider, but just my confidence was a bit lower. So I made the call to lower it. So I guess the first thing you got to think about, if you're thinking about this, is why you want to do it in the first place. And those reasons are only going to be valid for you. Once you've decided, what's been my experiences then with lowering it? I used the Lust 30mm kit out of the UK, and I'll put a link in the description to that process. My son and I did that. That was a very easy process. Lowered it down 30mm. On top of that, I got the factory low seat, which lowers it by another 20mm. Dropped it down to 810 to 830mm, depending on how you put the seat, because as I say, it's 20mm. So that puts it in the same round as my previous Tiger 800 XR. So, and that felt very comfortable to me. So before we get into the pros and cons, let's dispel a few myths about lowering motorcycles. There's a lot on YouTube around that. Here's some of the facts as I understand it. The first myth is that it will upset the geometry of the motorcycle. That's a myth if you make sure that you lower the bike in an equivalent manner. In other words, for the Lust kit, they recommend you lower the front forks by 10 millimeters. So that makes the stance of the bike exactly the same. So in my experience with the lowered bike, the geometry, the feel of the motorcycle doesn't change at all. As you can imagine, if you lower the back, that's going to step out the rake of your fork, which is going to make the bike feel more clumsy and slower in the steering. If you lower it the same amount, front and rear, it's going to be the geometry just as the factory intended. So myth 1 dispelled. Myth 2, it's going to really upset your chain. You're going to have to adjust the chain. In my experience with the Tiger, it might be different for you. I didn't have to adjust the chain, because remember it was only 30mm. Myth number 3, which I can't really dispel, you have to change the side stand. That is true if you're doing quite a big drop. In my experience, a 30mm drop meant I could keep the side stand, the factory side stand, I had to be careful. Obviously, it was up a little bit more on the vertical, but the Tiger in this case was really quite low down. In fact, way too low for me. Just for me, it was quite low, and so picking it up fully loaded was quite tricky. Now it's at what I think is a lovely angle, so I can pick it up easily. You do need to be careful. No parking on a big, where it's a drop off, putting your sides down there, but you're not going to do that as a rider anyway. So those myths dispelled. Let's talk about the pros and cons then. Well, let's talk about the pros, and I'll talk about the cons. The ups about it is I immediately felt more secure, confident on the bike because I could get my feet pretty well fully flat. That made my riding, particularly two up with my wife on the back, it just made the experience much more enjoyable. The other plus is the riding experience. As I said, pulling the bike up off the side stand, that's a whole lot easier. The cons are, and there are a few. The first is the stance of the bike. I mean, let's face it, if you're in the market for a big adventure bike, you're buying it because you love the way they look, you love the suspension travel of them. It does lower the stance. It just, even though 30 mil just doesn't sound like a lot, it does when it's off the center stand. It just looks a bit low. It took me a while to get used to that. So it looks physically smaller. So I don't know if that's an issue for you. The other con is that you lose a bit of ground clearance, obviously, 30 mil, exactly. And you lose a little bit of cornering clearance. Now, for me on these, the Tiger has a lot of, it's quite high, so it has lots of cornering clearance. I haven't scraped the pegs on the road either before I lowered it or after. I'm not really going crazy on the road these days, and I buy this bike for adventuring, going on off-road and getting to those places comfortably. So, but the con is you're going to lose a bit of cornering clearance, the angle that you can lean it, and that might be something you need to think about if you're on a road bike and you're into cornering. You need to think about that. Those are the main cons. So, would I do this again? Would I lower my bike? I think the answer is yes for my particular circumstance and for this particular bike. 880 mils seat height. What's that in inches for you US folks? It's in the UK folks. It's high. It's high. Yes, I would. It's given me confidence. I can get my feet pretty well flat, and I am really enjoying the bike after I've done it. If I had a road bike, I think I'd be thinking, I haven't done it to any of my road bikes, and I don't think I would. I think just the lean angle that you lose is something really to think about. 3, there's lots of great videos about riding for shorter riders, and so on YouTube. So yeah, I would be hesitant again if I'm really honest. In this circumstance, I'd do it, but for a road bike, I wouldn't. So there you go. I hope that helps. If you're thinking about lowering your ADV bike, I hope that's giving you some things to think about the pros, the cons, and maybe dispelled a few myths. And lastly, if you've got any mechanical kind of hesitancy to do it, my YouTube video on it it's very, very easy to do, so that shouldn't be a hindrance. But do think about your circumstance, do think about the bike, do think about the kind of riding you're doing before you jump into lowering your bike and thinking that's going to solve any confidence or tippy-toe issues you've got with your bike. I hope that's helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate you all. Thanks so much.